made. Uh, a law made. There's and it's certainly worthy of talking about with you guys. Another this right to travel, and if you like the things that we're also out on Instagram now. So those of you miss something, maybe then you, because I don't trust seen video. I want to make sure that um, so if you guys do want to come up, I back to the litigation. We only have about join that and participate. And uh, per tick. So DC, and we are. But he hasn't done anything, before he finally created. The thing is that it may not appear these public officials to actually. You see, the thing about Tom, they were right, and it didn't matter between success and failure. We have served over 100 different cities and counties. I mean, that's where we're at. You guys can see, the numbers that we've done. We are getting better and better and more effective. From the behavior and activity of recuse themselves or suddenly recuse for years, suddenly following us up. We've got representatives that are already know, just the other, right? This representative was very a I with the constant with the spending time with him and explaining what we're doing. Founders of Project Beer get this out, but what you guys need to understand is that I know I'm right, 100%. I know that the law is on our side. I know what the law says. I know the Constitution as well as anybody in this. Not judge-made rulings, the Constitution. What is the law? Judge says, I give a shit what the people power to create law to the judiciary. That's why the very first provision power is vested in a Congress saying that we reserve the power wrote into the Constitution of the United States of America to create law to the right now. That after the first of the year, people are going right. We got to be very, very right. Executive order or argument yet, and what we're bringing. But equal branch government, each with their right. The who we delegate the power to go to Washington, D.C. and to make laws on our behalf, statutes on our behalf, right? We gave them the power to do it. We delegated that power, but we only delegated it to the legislative branch. No other branch of government can create law because all legislative power is vested. So the first branch of government the overarching laws that will then laws by the central government, and then we where we the Constitution itself says that this the Constitution and no local option as you might. The only thing that makes the union or refuse to comply with them, then we the first branch of government, the Article 1 of the Constitution said because the laws are the only thing that executive branch. That's Article 2. The executive branch is there to enforce the laws. That's why the president's oath of office is that he will faithfully execute. So the president of the United States, police, right? All right? They're all agents of the enforce the laws of the United States or enforce. But what is the branch? The people reserve the is not law. Because is orders only affect an executive order, right? License, that is an executive. Because the law says that it agrees the Supreme Court of the United States has but that prevent the states from being able. And that executive order is then to do. It's the right thing. Judicial branch, okay? That's what they do. They administer. Just can't legislate, right? Creates his judge made rulings. Foreign to our Constitution. That's a separation of powers issue. So when the judicial branch creates a ruling and then calls it law, case law, well, that is unconstitutional. A branch of government that is exceeding the power authority that the Constitution is. The judicial branch makes rulings. But remember, the only people that have to obey rulings are people that are ruled over, right? Such as court, they have to obey. Attorney believes that he has to follow the people. We don't have to follow orders because the president is a servant to us. His orders only affect those that he can order, which are agents of his branch of government, right? The people that are out in that they have to do something right. So remember, the same thing applies. That would be a law, not an order. Just like with the executive, to obey, because are not subject to rulings. Right? Such as her. You don't have to follow the Constitution. Because they're subjected to rulings, because they're we the people, once again, are subjected to the ruling. And just remember, with the constituted authority to be able to create law. Powers vested in Congress of the United States. Their rulings must be consistent. Constitution of the United States of America, what they're doing. That's where we're at here. Right? So the right to travel, people, listen. Constitution, read it. It doesn't say anything anywhere about travel. In the Thompson versus Smith. Happened there is they created for the people. It's not a new. The Supreme Court of the United States said to travel is because government that car is your car, right? Constitution, government. Slaves are private property, government. Once again, for those of you that already know this, of the corporation, now it's operating. And you place your vehicle into but also Murdoch versus Smith. License for it. Is that corporates right? In other words, when they find Congress, thus then right? Congress did not take protected by the Constitution, and now they're case that I'm challenging States Supreme Court came out child without government interference. What they did was they created a that is an incorporated in the law. So for instance, unless on presentment there exists an already written, it already exists, it's already new rights under color of law, right? By the Constitution commits that crime. Government already has the government breaks the law. Why a state didn't do what the Constitution said. Okay? Your rights, once again, this is the doctrine of duties and rights. You guys, you need to understand where your rights come from. We're going to go back to the beginning here. We're going to clear up a few things here. From another's duty. So again, rights always now there are duties that exist. I have to obey God. I don't have any rights that accompany that duty. So our Constitution, the social compact theory. In the natural state of man, right? The natural, as a caveman, the rights that I have are undesirable. Okay? So in the natural state of man, only the strong survive. So in the natural state of man, you have the right to unalive someone. A caveman would unalive. It's not a desirable right. In the natural state of man, and you got God created the right, and therefore it's protected. Have the right to unalive another man, then why would God have to create the commandment, thou shalt not kill, right? Thou shalt not unalive. You see, God knew that in the natural state of man, the right to unalive existed. So he created an obligation. Created a commandment and said, in creating that duty, now in order for us to known as a law. So God a duty property. God doesn't want our property. I want people to have their property. Have an obligation to. This is all that they are. The right can't be. The right to have an intimate familial relationship with your child without governmental interference, then I can't go to the government and say, government, my right to have a relationship with my child has been interfered with. The Supreme Court of the United States absolutely, in the First Amendment and the 14th United States, have the power to create law. No, they don't. So what if the Supreme Court says that the right exists? Until the legislature. This is why we in order to bring attention to these unenumerated rights, such as the right to travel, right? Such as the right to have an intimate familial relationship with your child. The legislature, and it must be breached, because rights states has no power to create law. Read a judge made ruling. The law, it says that you. But until the law is created, United States of America. The government. Everything. The trial of all crimes. Crime is said to have been committed. It doesn't say that you have the right to. It says that no person. It's directing someone else. Another's duty to act. Right? Can't be taken. That the only way you can adjudicate a crime. Give up your right to a trial. Exists. Because in duty comes before the right. Our founders and forefathers. And again, Articles 1 through duties, right? Now, Article citizens in each state existence of privileges and immunities, and not what that's talking about, you guys. Privileges and immunities that was created by the so the privileges were and certain immunities from privileges aren't granted from government. Privileges, our founders are privileges were granted by they created privileges for the people. And those privileges are codified in the Constitution. Government didn't create the privilege because before government was created, government gives privileges, right? It was the of government, right? The argument, right? Because that's to all privileges and immunities as the citizens in the several states. What that's saying is that if you have a privilege in one state, another state can't deny you it, right? The privileges they apply equally amongst all members of the United States. One state cannot. Case 2010, it was to be married lawfully within the state of New York. And so then they moved to Ohio. And when they got to Ohio, Ohio said, oh, no, we don't recognize your marriage. We don't have same-sex marriage. Had the right to do what they did. Was denied. Shall be entitled to all privileges. New York, when they moved to Ohio, and for those of you that are going through with the drug, a drug decriminalized all drugs. Decriminalized, which means that they say don't prosecute anybody. Law exists, but we're not going to enforce the immunities. Privileges are when the law says we're not going to prosecute. Have drugs in our possession. On prosecution of this shall be entitled to all that decriminalize, that comply with that same giving this information to all of you because some Amendment. That's extremely important to remember. The Constitution, I just gave it to you. You have to go to the 14th Amendment and you have to no state shall create or if you have an immunity or immunity clause. That's bullshit because we have to comply with that. And the way existing structure of the system. Don't care. We win either way. In 1868, the Supreme Court relied issue has never been litigated. So we win either way. We win either way. But we have to proceed under certain presumptions. And those presumptions are system and the structure that they have. If they want to come out and deem the 14th Amendment, not valid because it was never properly ratified, that's fine. They can head down that path. That's going to be much more of a nightmare void because they are all up in DC and across the state. It wasn't properly ratified. The 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was adopted in 1988. Hurtado was the ruling that came out that said, yeah, state of California doesn't do an indictment by grand jury, therefore it's not required. Right? So the state said, we're not going to do it. And they came out and said, yeah, state California, you don't have to do it. What they did there was they made the state of California's law, right? Their ruling, the foundation. Sounds good and we're going to follow it. And ever since then, '68, we have create or enforce no state shall create created a law privileges and immunities of the United States. In a ruling called that we're dealing with today, made this privileges and immunities of legal effect against interference text of the Constitution, if it's a new any law which shall abridge the privileges of an indictment by a grand jury. Isn't possible, and yet that's exactly what's happening. The prosecuting attorney can decide constitutional right and who does that treats one part of the 14th Amendment's equal protection of the law means the law I believe it's Article 2, Section 8. Grand jury and who does not. That is deciding who has a either way on this issue. But my point is the Supreme Court of the United States they found that exists. Creation of God, it's not a creation of the state. Have a law yet that get the law created. Exists. We must why most attorneys don't that's my tech, that's my area of expertise. This is the part that you first must show duty that exists that until you first show because the law creates the duty. The reason why I'm victim who has had a crime committed against them. Someone in a position of authority broke the law. They breached the right now. And once I show that the law exists, then you guys can claim that your rights because we haven't first shown Supreme Court of the United States in 1880 Constitution through a judicial ruling bench and amend the Constitution of the United States of America. And put it at the foundation, and then the Constitution, and then we're going to privileges and immunities of United States citizens. In 1884, the Supreme Constitution of the United States. The time create or enforce any came out and said state of citizens. This is why we're especially when the Supreme Court came out in 20 this is also the reason you can't fight those two things. Made the ruling in 1987 challenge that, then at fighting civil to prevent a case from it's not timely, right? Tactics that the courts use because they know that if the courts, the district court, the to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court Justice Thomas and Sotomayor challenges the validity of our they lose their institution. The Constitution, right? Because they system only operates through honor and can't fight an incorporated right. In other words, a right that was created by the Supreme Court. We can't fight that the same way that we would fight an enumerated right. Because if we brought this case, Rehnquist Court found in 1980 find it. Where in the and this is the problem. That a right exists so we can find it in we didn't find the right. It's not we didn't can say that the right or in their case they would say the immunity exists because remember difference executive branch they say people have those decisions are made, and that's essential. And that is, and many, many others. Yeah. So, by the judge. And in because these two issues are judge breaks the law. So the otherwise infamous crime and the fifth, it does create the rights. And it's prohibited. But it comes with a prohibitory act of government. Let me give you an example. In the Fifth Amendment says that no person shall be deprived due process of the law. Okay, that right? It doesn't. What it says is that so there was just a case just last year with compensation. I think it was a ranch in the not government, but the other side too was that that doesn't say that you have the right. Government has the power to take. The way that the Fifth Amendment works is that exercising power becomes unconstitutional. Government takes it. Stated. The Fifth Amendment per capita or otherwise infamous crime that doesn't say government has as long as the prohibitory element is met. Indictment by a grand jury. Absent the indictment by a grand jury, absent the prohibitory element, the act of deprivation, the failure to so a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. The judge state of Oklahoma charged by information or bring the incorrect charge to hold someone brings the incorrect charge that he does not hold a little bit twisted for Oklahoma. But by bringing the putting the judiciary and the judge without an indictment by a grand jury. So they've got this separation of powers issue where the prosecutor who works for the executive and bringing the incorrect charge and instrument, and then a judge says, well, now the crime instrument, it doesn't occur for that offense. But conspiracy to deprive of rights the prosecutor crime was committed by the judge who brought the incorrect charge and instrument and deprive of rights. It's automatically established. 242 was committed against the judiciary. That's the highest judicial. Why did they make that decision? Made that. So the branch is obligated to adhere to it. Right? It was the Supreme Court of the United States. It's the judiciary that must obey Clause 1 of Amendment 5. No wonder they don't want it to exist. The United States to even make this ruling. To them, right? The ruling, this codified in the Constitution under the executive branch. True. It's not true. It's done. This is up to the prosecutor to decide. Yeah, it is up to them. Crimes, misdemeanors. By information. I'm talking about on all of these two-part test that is used to determine the decision that he applied the any erroneous view of the law is an automatic legal contemplation. A judge made ruling, that would be an obvious form of law, and that is an abuse of discretion. When it's prosecutors who decide to break the Constitution of the United States of America, Constitution of the United States of America, and that is any law commits 3 crimes automatically. Didn't do it, right? That's what the failed to fulfill that future outcome. So when you promise to do what the Constitution said, I will be guilty of discretionary authority with which they're invested in law. And extortion is to right? They're finding you guilty, or they're right. That is why use their discretionary authority. Compelling a result. Third crime is official against like members of society. At some point in time, that prosecutor he decided, okay, we're going to hold society, and that's where the violation that every public official your discretion to break the law. She's getting ready to get on. Again, is 50,000 times, right? I know that this is going to work. I know attorney or judge on their knowledge of, and I know that this is going to work. is myself. And be successful at this. We're right. I know that we're right. I'm trying to do this in the least destructive. That a peacemaker, right? He chooses it because it's going to destroy this country, and I don't want to do that, right? What I want is I want those people in a position of authority to step up, be honorable. And a lot of you guys, I have made that mistake thinking finished by September. Eventually, those threats could pass. This is a to do this in the least and these public officials to step doing right now if they didn't believe driving every single day. Night from Little Rock after serving next morning, 1 minute. The laws in Harris County, but helping bring about this like this does not do me any doing this. I'm doing this because I know right. I knew back everybody laughed. Accuser and judge, because if they are one of those, that came from me. You guys are hearing this spreading, and it came from me 9 years ago, right? I'm the one that brought in original jurisdiction courts, and now sitting at the Supreme Court. Actually make the Supreme Court of the United States issue is by going out over and over again so that in these message must remain the same. The issue. I want the issue. The Supreme Court of the United States has no substitute it for the guarantees of the Constitution and go on this indictment issue. That's why in order to has to take the time I want everybody to be aware on Facebook right now. This time last year, I was lucky to have 5 people on. The information is spreading, right? It is. It is. And for those people, you're right. You're right. I don't have knew that they were right, and they knew that they were. I don't. Teddy Roosevelt said, "Arena," and that man that's in again, right? Because he believes in it. Because the person that's in the arena doing the he either is going to be daring great. 9 years ago, I owned. I hated who I was. Right? And it wasn't until God woke me up, protecting the people from the government, right? Education, everything I had taken by a court and happening, right? It was the second half of my life try to create something that's going to last. Foundation, what it says is written in it. So a peacemaker is capable of we could tear this whole place to administer the law here in America is ignorance of the law is no just by holding someone over for such active deprivation in violation of the Constitution. They can't say, oh, well, the state told me to do it. No, because ignorance of the law is no justification for having broken the law. Every single one, an expert in the law, that is a no denying this truth. this is we've got to get them to, especially those that have the power. They are a superior force, right? With guns. So what we have to do that there are some. With me and they said, Mr. Support you. So they support it. These two governors, both of them said, we support you privately, but not publicly. I've been out to breakfast with United States representatives and a United States senator. They said, Mr. I support you privately, but not publicly. And I met with not attacking you personally, but he took off the patch on his uniform. He gave it to me, and he said, I believe in what you're doing. You're doing the right thing. I support you. Is that, listen, I believe in what I'm doing. I support you privately, but to lead them in a we've had mayors who commissioners call us to leading the way. Right? That I'm getting nowhere. Is just talk and all bluster and who's going to be that shepherd. One United States Senator stepped out publicly all of these sheep, right? Because they're just waiting for one. Out here, we're doing these services. The pressure that's going treason. You guys all know it. It's all treason. Sedition is defined as the speaking or writing of words, such as law constitution to procure its alteration in an other than lawful. Changes the Constitution in 1884. Intended to procure its alteration in an other than lawful manner. The one way to change the Constitution can be found within Article 5. To alter, amend, or destroy any in 1887 Constitution in an other than lawful manner. It's law. Of sedition. Now you've got an act. We're not going to get, especially when I call it out, right? So this is when you're notified that 18 subsection 241. Depriving any person of any. Thing is that once you are in be rights by Constitution commits that crime. Any of the wrongs conspired to be do so may be joined into the county. Put a notice on the record. Obligation by agents that they pay. Substantive law. I do the first. Give them an official notice. All I got to criminal conduct because you've been made aware is that I don't operate within the because I'm not an attorney. Is a task traditionally done function ever performed by attorney. They're talking about, potentially walk in any courtroom, and I don't prefer law enforcement because I'm law enforcement. To go ahead and shut that down really quick. So if you come after us, Alabama or Florida, good luck, because even Justice Gorsuch just stated a couple weeks ago that the only way that the duties or performing the roles traditionally done by attorneys and collect service. Service is always so. State has created a law. It's contrary to these public officials. Now they're knowingly and willing. But when you, as a public official, are informed of the existence of a criminal conspiracy, two things must be done. You have to do the authorities of the crimes country. They have to notify the authority. Department, because according is the FBI. So all of these, but the first part of it's the first thing they had to do. Once you're a member of a conspiracy, they did not. And I'm talking now, whether or not call the proper agency with continued to pay those public, none of them have done that. Conspirators of their intent. Okay. So again, conspiracy, but that must be done. Those that they're in. For instance, when I went to the Attorney General, know that you are all your information on indictment, what she and then two, she would have had notifying my co-conspirators of my intent. Show us that she did something, then by and the fact that she continued to allow that her agency, the inferior state statute that you know, and right, you know, that this was going to work. Peaceful way. I don't want. Right? This easy way is that those people obligations as a public official that. And if we can't the destruction is on their hands. I'm here to preserve. And I'm proud to can never be an optional outcome. Or I'm doing this in the most peaceful. But you know what? I'm going to continue longer accept peace as want to get them to reconcile. Refuse to recognize and force the body. Children are suffering, mothers and fathers are suffering, prisoners are suffering, elderly people are suffering. All these people are all suffering because the one thing that was designed to protect, established to preserve, is the plight that we're on. Then it should come in our own hands. I believe it is, because I do believe that eventually here, lead all these sheep on their own and do the right thing. And with all of those people are when I reach it's going to happen. It'll blow over. Maybe you can ignore it long. That will never fucking happen. Silently and build this. Because there's enough people that are aware of. So you can just take that completely out of your. You're the cause of this. You did this, not this. You did this. This was your. These public officials, they're all sitting max. But if they going to have to own up to this. Ability in the criminal conspiracy, and they do something to prevent going to the gallows, and one of them feels the pressure just enough that they say, you know what, I'm going to be that first person to step across because this is going to happen. Eventually, it's going to happen. When every single attorney general, 47 state Supreme Courts, 100 United States senators without them knowing who I am, and they know exactly what I'm doing. Because if they do, make a martyr out of me, right? It's only to lose. There's no justification. So as a result, right, against those that are in power, to bring attention to the issue. Can't say that this is going to work. That's the right thing to do. Potential lives lost. This is I'm going to stand with the law. Can sure in the hell do is I can and you public official, you got to transgress the law and send other criminals to prison. What you're doing is producing I would take a look at the situation. There's none of these convictions are valid. Because if you have to break each of the law by your unlawful convicted of a crime here in America, law predecessors that came before you removed the limitations of power that the judiciary had, right? Your own institution did that. And then your own institution, the highest court in the land, directed fault. That's on you. Operating under fraud. Fraud vitiates any decision and directed all the courts the rights that are enumerated court in the country does is valid. You have to step up and you have to pick put into place, right? The fraud is removed. That fraud vitiates any action of any court. Period. Supreme Court is the one that has to make this decision. Not for you to go and file affidavit that I have and go in and purpose of those affidavits. Highest court in the land obey to obey the law also. They're being permitted through the fraud And until the highest court in the land is going to continue to commit these crimes. Those affidavits, you're sending them to me. The people that have had these crimes committed against them. Enforcement expert to go you can claim that you're what I do. That's law enforcement. To establish right, the existence of your right gives duty to ensure that there was indictment. One is and this isn't something that I'm might help you think. We all 2024 Chevron deference rule if it's ambiguous enforcing the law. So enforcing the law, if they this, then what they could do is so the attorney generals were and then order our people is does the executive because just like I said in the very beginning, affected by orders because only said, hey, clear what the law states or constituted authority to be able to amend or policy, that would be a constituted authority to legislate. With the executive branch, them because otherwise what you're doing is my litigation, what I'm currently doesn't have the authority to make law. None of that policy is law, right? Because outlaw because it was policy. And I'm saying all your bursts of Chevron isn't the foundation because under the United States could write a ruling is not the foundation. That means so if we want the Constitution, that's what Chevron did, and then we'll see the Constitution fall back, relying upon but they are bound to we're dealing with second half. But my point here branch does not have the authority. Trump actually signed an executive drug, right? So hate it, guys. I walk around town. If the president then it would seem to me like if it were law, then the executive decriminalizing it, making it immune, which would be consistent with the time frame. The Chevron ruling and Chevron doctrine and all to make immune. That's policy. The other they are not to arrest people. And once again, right? That's actually policy. That's not a law. Exist by the Supreme Court of the United States. Executive branch that says arrest people that are traveling without a license, right? Because they got to have a license. It's not law. It's policy. So if that changes the things that happen, the criminality that happens, that so I would agree with the right to travel. I would agree with the right to use their property. It's just what I'm saying is that there's a whole bunch of people that they're bringing up the right to travel. Think about what I just said. That anymore, which means that cases, think about policy. That it is not a law, it's policy. Is that good? About serving and I think that's a great idea. Went to your local city council. One of the issues that Jessica and I have talking about the rulings from obey those rulings. You guys have to exist, therefore you have to create the law. Actually accountable to the rulings created by the Supreme Court, but the executive branch is not. Police officers don't have to obey the ruling because there's no order. The ruling would come from the court. So as long as you're not going to police, because we don't have a duty so you can't go to police and in one of these services is nowhere in the Constitution does it say on the right of intimate association with the, because once again, it doesn't exist in the Constitution. Not call that ruling law because otherwise we jury. We either need that ruling is not law, but if you guys want to go out and start serving with that service, I'm gonna say that's a good idea. It's a great idea. Created or was it's you cannot find it. Then what we got to do is we got to bring it law protecting the rights you whatever else. Typically the that is code word for stated claim upon which relief can be granted. So if you're getting responses saying is show me the law derives from another's duty to your rights have been violated. So be the law, and as a result, now you can claim these affidavits I'm using and oh, by the way, here's 2 points. We're going to get there. All right. It's like it's about an hour in. So Jessica, she's amazing. I've done lots and lots of service. I did a ton of work before. And we just traveled. I was doing, listening to the things I was saying before. So prior to that, but I wasn't getting any traction. It wasn't really done. Fairfax and so that's when you know, to go into the family side, and it so she's providing that second half of the work. So remember, one of the reasons why I'm able to you say my wife will be smacked. So in order to challenge that or I blocked and I'm going to report all Trey 55 Trey wants. I needed to be able to challenge it, and I knew build the case to be able to win it. Because in order to challenge that, because I was directly impacted, I built this case to do just that. It wasn't my intelligence, it was definitely I knew that family court, right? Jessica has. So that case on behalf of the law in question, but she has. Because the litigator is one. Happens if we put every group, right? And that's what. But in order to get to that point, I need to finish up here, and then it would be on. We have TANAWAH for you guys out there, or from there you can or the affidavits that I need for the post office box. It's the only one we have. Serve your local city council. But remember, we are to, at a minimum, that has, and it's the one that every single state. We're using the indictment by grand argument that she'll be bringing up too long now, but we right, the one that's actually written, the one that there is the so a notice there. It's a 6-page service you guys do, but you now one of the things that's important here. It's not up to you guys to make. Well, you don't, but just be. If you don't understand public official, mitigate your culpability. It does not. I speak, right? And if you continue to and now you're knowingly now we need a judge made no order distance is criminality and you Put it on the record. So right, because the notice. On the record, you submit the notice. They clearly don't understand what they're saying. Now of a public record, and now it is dependence in the action. And Jessica's providing for information. Traveling the country and trying to get your and we need to be able to have quick to be able to share with you. It's not being all right, and some money. We and claiming to be us. Control that, okay? One thing that has to happen is that if you guys go to the even if that brings heat down on me, I be me, and then it's we're not, right? And yet we have at least 4. So they communicated with us normal. Screenshots of their communication for you. What that tells he's actually getting a lot of money. Case because I'm not an attorney. Is going to help all of you. And if I can successfully that means all of the therefore we don't got to go and fight. We get into that court issue, which I can, will then render void all of. I need you guys to get behind me and help. But so we don't do this. I don't do children that are being taken from their families. And continue to he shall be free ter. Ways to donate to us is for an Apple card because shall be free. And there's fake accounts with a be free. That's WE. When I spell stuff out, I receives money from we. And if you guys got any questions, so if you're not sure, but asking for money, it's not visitors, right? We're not attorneys. We're doing this because it's the right thing to do, but we can't get paid to do these things because that would mean that we were soliciting, right? That we were the work that we're doing. Once again, Alabama and Florida, if you want to get a little frisky on this, this is not work that's performed traditionally by attorneys. Therefore, there is no grounds to accuse us of. All I can say is good luck. All right. Pulaski County. Old Aaron Spencer is the father. For sheriff, it's a big high profile. But about 10 minutes before we arrived, Pulaski County, which is then we drove down Texas on Thursday as well. On between now and the Saw, Missouri area. At all. Enforcement. That's what my oath is actually. And my oath coincides with the enforcement of law. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all use foreign and domestic. So that is an enforcement oath, not an administrative oath. Alabama, we've heard from some state politicians there that there's a lot of talk and chatter about perhaps trying to arrest us on practicing law. And ready to snap back on that. So, you know, if that's the way you want to go, Alabama and Florida, all you're going to do there is draw attention to the issue. Because if you put me in a courtroom and give me the opportunity, very, very dangerous place for you to have me. So I would just advise that you guys don't. If I haven't things I'm saying, and I'm going to let that vacation and by that jury no that, and thus that would be act you do. We will absolutely on the record and give guilty. It would be not those agents. So I wouldn't. What was I just talking about? So illness and the hospital time, we just funding from my service had the funding to be able to actually get this done. It's just unbelievable. And together, that's when they start working on January 5th through the 9th. U.S. representatives. We work with toll and roll in. And then from there, I think we're second week, the end of this immediate schedule. This guy, we don't have anything. I hope you guys have. You know, I don't want to say in Michigan yet. And getting that county finished, but they have every Monday. So is there any questions here? Thank you. We don't help on individual cases. That I'm substantive law. When you give someone a power of attorney, they're on your behalf. So an advocate is one. But all of the information hopefully give you knowledge of this particular litigation that we. Thank you, brother. All right, guys, I'm gonna go back on this video. I know it's been a long name and last name. So first, but you can also go to my Facebook page. And they'll be there for.